Welcome to TheoTrade. This is Don Kaufman. In this video, we're going to be discussing a little bit about volume and open interest. You know, there's a lot of discussion in options trading about, of course, the volume and the open interest and what they really mean ultimately, how they're actually calculated, for instance, like open interest, how it's calculated. And that's a bit of what we're going to discuss. But additionally to that, we're going to maybe set aside a couple of myths, if you will. Yes, there are some myths involving volume and open interest. Let's start with, simply put, like what the volume and what the open interest kind of indicate. And again, you know, you think this would be like self-explanatory. Well, the volume. Let's go into Apple. So we're on thinkorswim. We go to Apple. We open up the DS2s. What are the DS2s? They're the weeklies. They expire in the next 4 days. And when you take a look at them, you're going to see immediately under volume in open interest, the volume here is 13,925 contracts. It's Apple. What did you expect? Low volume? This is actually high volume. And if you are looking at something like thinkorswim and you're not seeing volume and open interest, all you have to do is change your information layouts. You can go down to base price and quote over here, and you've got volume, you've got open interest, and you can set those next to one another. They're also under layout here. They're one of the prefabricated layouts. You just click volume and open interest, and there you go. There's volume, there's open interest. So the volume, make this abundantly clear. That's the number of options contracts, okay, that are trading thus far today. And that's it. I want to make it very, very distinct that that's the number of contracts trading today. So there's 13,940 contracts trading of just this particular strike. This is the 119 calls. Now, great. So you're like, all right, so almost 14,000 contracts of trade. Okay. The open interest, all right, open interest. That's the number of total contracts that are open. The open interest is only, okay, calculated at the end of a trading day, and it will not change or differentiate in any way throughout the course of the trading day. So if you look at the volume and you realize the volume exceeds the open interest, you're like, whoa, how's that possible? How's it possible? Because number one, this happens all the time. Someone could have traded in and out and in and out and in and out throughout the course of the trading session. Now, I could have bought 1,000, sold 1,000, bought 1,000, sold 1,000, bought 1,000, sold 1,000. Before I know it, I've opened and closed and opened and closed. And at the end of the day, okay, there may no longer be 11,780 contracts traded. There could actually be less contracts open by the end of the day. The open interest can actually decline. How can that be? Because some of this 14,000 contracts may have been closing positions. And there's also times when you'll see new options strikes open. Okay? And when the new option strike opens, and you're like, what's a new option strike? That's an option, okay, that maybe never existed before. And you can kind of hunt around in option chains, and from time to time, you're going to see an option chain where the open interest is next to nothing. And why is that? Because maybe, okay, these weeklies didn't exist, for instance, last week, and they've just been added. So the open interest would be zero. There are no contracts that are quote unquote open. And if you think about an open contract has one buyer and one seller. And in this strike here, in the 120 calls, there's 198 contracts open right now. Okay, and you're like, well, that's nothing. That's not that many contracts. But again, these options, these 46-day options, they may not have been around for a very long time. This may be a newer option series that's been added. So keep that in mind when you're looking at like really low, like open interest. You're like, oh, nobody's trading those. Yeah, because they haven't been around. But if you compare that to like the January options, some of these January options, I mean, these things are even pre-Apple split, and I can see the Apple split because they're like, oh, the 118.57s. I mean, there's like crazy strikes in here. Yes, Apple did split 7-for-1 quite some time ago, but here we are, and you can take a look in this open interest. It's huge because these options have been around, again, possibly for years, right? Why are the January options, why have they been around for years? Because you can even see the January 2017 options are already there. All right, so there's a possibility the options have just existed longer. They accumulate more open interest. Now, to get one of the myths out of the way, one of the myths is a lot of people look at open interest and they immediately say, heavy, heavy open interest. Oh, the stock has got to go to the 120 strike, or the stock has got to go to the what? All right, the 125 strike, because there's big open interest. Okay, there is more myth to that than there is reality. Do stocks sometimes migrate to heavy open interest? Absolutely. Okay, and there's an entire theory kind of behind just that. But you have to be extremely careful in assessing, okay, where a stock is going to go versus an open interest. And in this case, I mean, this is like an ideal situation to talk about. Why do the 115s, the 120s, and the 125s, why do those three strikes, both in calls and puts, why are they seeing the highest open interest? And I like to always kind of reiterate this a bit. So you see heavy open interest here, heavy open interest here, here, okay, here, and here. Why? Because these strikes, all right, these strikes have existed for a substantial amount of time. The dollar strikes were only added more recently, and hence why they have more open interest. It's like one of the biggest myths in options trading. If you open up like the February options, kind of ironic. Look, February goes 115, 120, 125, 130, and then, okay, later on, more strikes will be added. The dollar strikes will be added. So again, to sit back and to kind of corner people on that myth of like, well, it's the heaviest open interest is where it's going to go to. It's actually not correct. There's a tremendous amount of research now really detracting from the idea that an underlying will just migrate to the heaviest open interest. Okay. The other reality is, in today's trading environment, we are now seeing, okay, the heaviest options volume in the shortest duration possible, okay, in almost all liquid products. Okay, I'm going to say that again. The heaviest option volume, like basically, look at all the contracts that are trading here. If I look at the weeklies with 4 days to remain, they've got pretty huge, I mean, monumentally large, if you will, options contracts going on them. Then you look at like the standard monthlies. The standard monthlies, listen, this is not bad volume, but you don't see like 10, 15,000 contracts trading in here, right? So again, the heaviest volume kind of resides in the shortest duration contract possible. Keep it in mind. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed a little bit about option volume and a bit of discussion about open interest. Enjoy the